Welcome to the Political Science Department and our advising page. In this short video, I will briefly discuss for you the requirements for students majoring in international affairs, in particular the foreign language requirement. As you know, probably students who choose to major in international affairs have to fulfill an additional foreign language requirement. All students majoring in any of the programs in the College of Arts and Sciences are required to fulfill 10 to 12 credit hours of foreign language coursework. Now, for students majoring in international affairs, as you can see from our advising page, there is an additional requirement of 10 to 12 additional credit hours. How can these 10 to 12 additional credit hours be fulfilled? Well, there's two different ways. One is to take 10 additional credits beyond what the ANS requirement is for languages like Arabic, Chinese, and Japanese. Also up to 10 or 12 additional credit hours of German, which requires the completion of the 2000 level German courses, three actually 2000 level German courses, and one of the 3000 level German courses, and 12 credit hours, or the other option is 12 credit hours beyond the ANS requirement for French, Hebrew, and Spanish. What these three options mean is that if you choose to continue and stay within the same language, you need to accumulate upper level foreign language coursework, 10 credits for languages that are in 5 credit hour increments, 5 credit hours per semester, and 12 credits for those that are in 3 credit hour increments. Another way to fulfill the requirement is to basically take another foreign language, different from the language with which you have fulfilled the ANS requirement, the Arts and Sciences requirement. In other words, put it in simply, this means you have to do twice as much coursework in the foreign language that you would have to do for any other major. That's because we expect you and require for you to develop proficiency. High level of proficiency in 1 or 2 foreign languages. Now, remember that this requirement can also be completed through completing coursework overseas, through study abroad programs, like many partner schools that we have in Cairo in Egypt, the Free University of Egypt, schools that we have all over the world with whom we partner to fulfill this requirement. Now, sometimes encoding may be a little goofy, just like, for example, in this audit that I have permission by the student to you can see clearly that it kind of shows almost as if the requirement is not fulfilled. The truth is there's just an encoding issue. You can clearly see that the student has taken enough credit hours to fulfill the introductory coursework in Spanish through extended Spanish, and then intensive and extended Spanish completed through composition and conversation, grammar and speaking, and others have fulfilled here the international affairs foreign language. Now, remember, of course, that in order to be able to access the audit and to be able to review how students have fulfilled the requirements, you need to go to Catalyst, select a student audit that you have to, you can choose, click there, and review the audit. So what happens if the student is short on credit hours? Or what happens if the student has not accumulated sufficient number of credit hours, or has accumulated substantial number of foreign language credit hours, but they're not sufficient to fulfill a specific foreign language requirement? Well, my general advice is plan ahead of time. If you have taken, for example, foreign language coursework overseas, but you're 1 credit hour short, that is not going to be a problem for us. In fact, we will work with you to make sure that the requirement is fulfilled thanks to the immersive effect of the foreign language coursework. Another way, of course, to fulfill the requirement is to accumulate sufficient number of hours within the same foreign language, or within multiple different foreign languages. For example, if you look at this degree audit, I will show you in a few minutes. This case, the student has fulfilled the arts and sciences foreign language requirement by taking German 1001, 1002, both of which are 5 credit hours, and then the upper level foreign language requirement by taking Spanish 1001 and 1002. Is this a good pathway? Would I recommend this pathway or not? Well, it depends. By and large, we would recommend, as a rule of thumb, for students to focus in one foreign language, especially if they haven't had a lot of schooling. Like in this case, the student hasn't had much schooling in Spanish or in German. We allow 2 introductory level foreign language requirements courses to be completed, sequences of courses to be completed for 20 credit hours total. 10 apply toward the general education and 10 toward the major requirement, but this is less than ideal, especially for languages like Arabic, like Chinese, like Japanese, like where the students need to spend more time to acquire a level of proficiency that allows them to use the language effectively over the course of the time and to maintain that language. If students are in a need to graduate and combining 2 introductory level foreign languages is a way to go, then of course that is acceptable as well. Also, if students have already had a mastery in one of the languages, let's say Spanish, and they want to continue upper level foreign language, then they can continue with Spanish, but they can also switch and take coursework in a second language. In this case, for example, that would be German. Now, remember, oftentimes we have students who are either native or heritage speakers of a foreign language. Now, first, let me explain what's the difference. Native speakers are those who have had schooling that is equivalent of 8th grade or higher in a foreign language environment. Those who have not had a schooling of 8th grade or i.e. less than 8th grade, they're by and large considered heritage speakers. All native speakers have to do is document that they have had these years of schooling and they will have the requirement waived. Now, for heritage speakers to have the requirement waived, they need to complete the ANS evaluation form, which you can see here available on our website. It's usually completed by a native speaker of a foreign language that is available on the University of Cincinnati's campus. The main languages have foreign language instructors who will who will examine the students. They will have to take a language proficiency test and will be evaluated if the requirement will be waived or not. If, however, the language is unique and we cannot find an expert on our campus at the University of Cincinnati who can evaluate that, then the other option would be to find somebody in the local community who can complete the form. Now, please remember that completing the form does waive the requirement, but does not waive the credit hours associated with the requirement, which means that it is the responsibility of the student to accumulate additional credit hours to fulfill general education and the overall 120 college credit hours requirement. Now, of course, you may be a native or a heritage speaker of another foreign language and still take advantage of taking and completing a foreign language. In this case, of course, a student can complete the foreign language without using that waiver. The waiver is just an opportunity, but it's not a required. Again, the person who they need to contact after they complete the form is Professor Nuria Lopez Ortega from the Foreign Languages, who will save the document, the certificate which has extended such a waiver. Now, what happens if the student has accumulated, let's say, 20 to 22 credit or 20 to 24 credit hours, but they're in between several different foreign languages? For example, they tried to do Arabic, they took one course, they didn't like it, they switched to Chinese, they accumulated a certain amount of credits there, but ultimately none of those are sufficient to complete the foreign language. Well, the lesson here is that students should prepare in advance, should focus ahead of time. and plan from their very first year, very first semester on campus. By and large, if the student is not due for graduation, we would require from them to complete the sequence to accumulate at least 10 or 12 credit hours, either introductory or upper level coursework, to fulfill the requirement. If, however, student is due to graduate, please contact your ANS advisor, who will work with the director of undergraduate studies to make sure that credit hours are appropriately applied in order that we don't delay your graduation. In a nutshell, be strategic and choose and plan carefully foreign language, and consider that as an opportunity and an asset